Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's
Okay.
go.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Quality Matters. I'm your hostess, Darcy Chambers. I'm here with,
Kyle Chambers.
and we have another guest for you today. We have,
Lanny Partain.
and I guess in fairness, we go to church with Lanny at Southeast Church of Christ, and I actually don't even know your job title. You just do everything here.
My business card says that I am a minister of pastoral care.
Okay.
Ah.
He really does way more than that, though. And we wanted to sit down with him because of his involvement in one of, I guess, a program that we're affiliated with. We're not in charge of this. And Kyle's very excited about this.
Very much.
In today's global economy, quality matters. Benjamin Franklin once quipped, "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." Quality Matters is here to talk about all things quality. So whether you're looking to improve your business, getting ready for an audit, or dealing with failed inspections, tune in, check us out, then get back to doing work that matters.
So tell us a little bit about the Family Promise program.
Family Promise is a unique nonprofit organization. Their goal is to take homeless families, and by families, that means there are always children involved. There
Okay.
might be one or two parents, but there's always children.
Okay.
And find those families that are capable of and willing to commit to doing the things they need to do to get back into independent living.
So then, Kyle is more excited, well, not more, I'm excited to do this, but I think Kyle has an idea of where he wants us to go, so.
Yeah, so, we talk about how quality really matters. It just doesn't matter where you go. One of the key parts of any quality management system is planning. So how many families are in the program right now?
At this time, there are two.
Okay.
We can take up to 4 families.
Okay.
That is predicated on the rather unusual and unique circumstances of housing these families in churches.
Okay.
So they go to a different church every week, and the church provides a place for them to sleep, provides meals for them, provides child care and other things that help them to do the things they need to get back on their feet. We have 13 churches in the network.
Okay.
So they rotate between 13 churches, and they spend their days either working or looking for work, and we provide a day center for them to go to during the day. They have access to computers, internet. They have access to laundry and showers and a place to store their goods and a
Right.
place to relax. So there are a lot of moving pieces, and planning is the key.
And that's what I wanted to talk about because, again, it just doesn't matter where you go. These things are just insanely important. So tell me a little bit about how do you manage 13 different organizations to effectively function as one?
Really good question. And we have, of course, a board of directors, and we have, right now we have 2 paid staff people. We have a director, and then we have another person who works more directly with the families. The director is kind of the overseer, and among everything else, she works with funding, raising funds, interacting with the community, interacting with the churches, with the volunteers. There's a huge number of volunteers.
I bet.
Southeast has, I think, something like 60, 65 people. And that's just
In
one
one church.
One
Yeah.
of 13 churches.
Right.
So it's an immensely complex operation.
I'm sure. Sure. I run into doing work right now with a rather large corporate organization downtown Houston, and they have a whole building named after them. But within it are all of these little, smaller, subdivided internal corporations that all kind of stand apart and on their own from one another. And I bring this up because it's kind of a very interesting parallel. We've got kind of the same thing here of all these different, organizations that are all kind of unique and independent, but then have, 50, 60 people involved at each little node. How often do y'all meet and talk, and how do these decisions that need to be made get made?
Each church has a coordinator.
Okay.
A person who manages for that individual church as far as all the scheduling that goes into providing meals and providing overnight hosts, because we have a family here from the church overnight, every night that they're here.
Right.
And arranging for laundry, arranging for all of the myriad of things that go into taking care of these families when they are under our care. So there's one person that is in charge of that.
Okay.
And then those 13 coordinators talk to each other.
Okay.
And all of them talk to, of course, those paid personnel that manage the oversight of the entire network.
Gotcha.
Also, to add to this, we're part of a national network to whom we are connected and help support, and they support us with ideas and training and literature.
Okay.
But we keep a large amount of autonomy within each network.
Gotcha. Interesting.
That's
Interesting.
nice.
So, how many families? I guess how long do they usually? I know there's probably not a usual, but usually stay in the program. Like, what's that look like?
Nationwide, kind of the national average, families will stay in the program for approximately 3 months.
Okay.
And within that 3 months, most of them will have secured employment. They will have gained some necessary skills in money management, parenting, interviewing.
Gotcha.
And they will be ready to move into independent housing.
So there's a lot more going on than just caring for physical needs for the folks here.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, I know like the day center, part of homelessness is it's hard to get a job because you don't have a physical address to put on a job application. The day center provides that for them.
That's true.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, just one simple thing.
yeah, no, that was one thing I thought about before. When I think when the day center was first being put up, that's when it finally kind of dawned on me. It's like, oh my gosh, how do you actually fill out a job application? I mean, you hear people say sarcastically all the time, just get a job, but
Yeah,
if you don't have an address.
Your car's not really a good address.
Yeah, no, it's not. So I guess tell me a little bit more about how do y'all kind of teach these skills, and do you have any structured programs for it?
We do, and we have people who have those skills who volunteer their time to conduct formal classes.
Okay.
Usually at the day center, but not necessarily. But there are people who have those unique skills that we bring into the operation, into the program.
Okay.
And they're gracious enough to do that at their own cost and expense.
That's awesome.
That's nice.
That's awesome. How do y'all find folks that are in need that kind of fit the profile?
Yeah, really good question. We get most of our families through referrals from the schools, but that's not by any means an exclusive thing. They can come from anywhere. Unfortunately, we have a large number of applications to arrive at a fairly small number of actual clients, because the program that we have is very demanding on people coming into it. There are high expectations, and they covenant with us that they will do certain things.
Right.
We take over a lot of control of their life for a very short period of time to help them get back in control of their life. And there are a lot of people who are not willing to do that.
So what would the requirements be that people aren't willing to turn over?
Well, for one thing, they have to be very accountable for their money management.
Okay.
They're basically put on an allowance.
Oh.
Because we want them, they're not incurring any expense. We're taking all of their expense, and we want them to use any money that they make to accumulate the amount of money it takes to get back into, because it costs money to get into housing.
Right.
Yeah.
And also that gives them some training on financial responsibility and managing their money better when we turn it back over to them.
Right. Yeah, I could see that being an issue. I mean, I know that, we did the Dave Ramsey, not the same, but did Dave Ramsey's financial piece. And, it's real easy to keep up with the program those first couple of months afterwards. But then 6 months later, it's really easy to fall into old habits again. And I can imagine when you're just really kind of hanging on the bottom rungs for a little while, that would be really difficult.
And we do have a program in place to follow these people. We don't just, when they leave here after 3 months or 4 months
Right.
or whatever, we don't just drop them.
Right.
They become independent of us, but we still stay in touch with them. We have a program to help them make sure that they have transportation if they don't have a car coming in. It's hard to maintain a job in Texas and Houston
Yeah.
if you don't have transportation.
So even once they're out of the program, you help provide transportation for them.
Even as they're in here, we are working toward making sure that they can get to that job interview
Yeah.
and then get to the job. And we're working now, just in the beginning stages, of finding a way to, in some cases at least, provide what we're calling interim housing, where they don't have to go into an apartment with the full weight of
Right.
that monthly overhead on their shoulders.
So kind of ease back into it.
Right. If we can provide them a place that we own or control anyway, where they can maybe pay 25% of the rent
Right.
for a couple of months, and then 50%.
That's
And
amazing.
then at some point, then they
That
are
would be nice.
That's
back
amazing.
into their the full weight of independent living.
No.
So that sounds to me like continual improvement.
It is.
The Family Promise organization
It
is
is.
constantly looking for
Yeah.
ways to improve and continue helping their guests. That's what y'all call them, the
Exactly.
guests.
And any successful organization that's you have to operate that way. You talk about the follow-ups that you do with this. Well, again, just kind of make parallels to how all of this stuff is really so incredibly similar. This is effectively customer satisfaction, like what we just talked about on the last podcast, right? How Matt calls 150 customers a day, and I know you're not making 150 calls a day, but the idea is to follow up with folks and see how they're doing, see how they're operating, and what else might could be done there.
So I know one thing in particular we wanted to talk about was Family Promise took a year off at one point to kind of, I guess, to regroup or to, I don't know. What did y'all do?
Well, it comes right back to your core subject, planning and continually improving. And we had a breakdown in planning. There were gaps in our business plan, if you will, to provide the continual ongoing funding that this requires.
Gotcha.
And when you run out of money, you shut down. And so we have took a couple of years off and figured out what we did wrong, and figured out how we could not do that again,
Yeah.
and came back with a better business plan, better planning, and better execution.
Good.
And hopefully we're on a much more stable footing.
Well, I think in preparation for this, Kyle and I were talking about that, and I kind of asked him, well, how does that connect to the corporations? And he said it's the same thing, you still got interested parties, the homeless people, and that has to be hard to shut down your program that is helping people and say, no, we have to shut it down and do better. And so many times companies just keep doing it the wrong way because they don't want to stop, and it's probably effectively costing them more money to keep doing it the wrong way than it would be to shut it down. And in this case, it wasn't necessarily, I mean, I guess it was about the money because that's what that's what shut y'all down. But
going back to kind of what again what we were talking about last time with Deming and some of his ideas is he calls it tampering. So if the system is not in control and it's not cohesive and it's not working, and you make these little tiny adjustments over and over and over and over, he calls that tampering with the system. And he used a great example of a man that was told to cut 100 boards to 63 inches. Well, by the time he got to the 100th board, he was cutting them at 48 inches. because he was using the previous board to measure the cut for the next board.
Yeah.
And so each one was just
A
slightly
little
shorter.
shorter.
And so it's tampering with the system. And so you want to avoid that when possible. Obviously, in a lot of situations in life, it's not possible to just put a stop on it when things aren't going well. But it's a good thing to be able to do when you can literally afford it, or you can't afford it, just however it works. But it's good to be able to put a stop and start new again.
And sometimes that's not even in your control. Sometimes the control's taken away from you. You have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't have any options. And you mentioned this being like a corporation. Nonprofits are exactly like corporations, but they have the added challenge of being volunteer. And that changes the whole dynamics of everything, and it really brings planning and management to a higher level.
I'm sure.
Because in a corporation, the boss says, do it. In a nonprofit, you say, would you be willing to? Or would you please? And the answer is either yes or no. So it's a whole different world. It's a whole new set of challenges, but the core idea
Bigger
is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to back up a little bit, almost to the beginning, I guess. So what is the process for these families to get involved with Family Promise?
They go through an interview process. They go through a background check. They go through a series of commitment documents that they agree to do certain things and we agree to do certain things. Obviously, first of all, you have to have the correct family dynamic. There has to be the children, because this is all about the children.
Right.
One interesting thing, by the way, when they leave the churches, they go to the day center each day, and by law, all of the public schools are required to provide transportation for them to their school. So even though they're moving in different school districts every week, they keep their own
Their home school.
And that's
good.
a really big
I had
thing.
recently
Yeah.
read that on the
That's good.
website.
That's huge. Like, kids need that some
Exactly.
stability.
It would be
structure.
impossible
Oh, gosh.
if they didn't have that.
It's just really
I can't imagine the added challenge on a parent to constantly have to, re-enroll
you
at a
couldn't
new
do it.
You
school.
couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it. We created enough hardship and obstacles on them intentionally for their benefit,
Right.
without adding those sorts of things. We
Yeah.
could not be
Well,
for
and
their
I know
benefit.
y'all work very closely with the school. I know somebody from the school district has come to our church and talked to us before, so I know y'all have a close relationship with Clear Creek ISD anyway.
All of them.
To help, yeah. So
I guess to close this out, just because this is something that I've really actually wanted to do since we're starting the podcast. I'm dying to do this because I just love what y'all do so much. How would folks, if they know someone in need, how would they need to contact you guys or to get in touch to try to get someone some help?
Just go to the website, get our phone number, and have the party, preferably have the party call our office.
Okay.
And that's all it takes to get it started.
Now, we'll get it listed in the show notes, but can you go ahead and tell us the web address and the phone number?
No.
I know it's Family Promise of Clear Creek. You can Google that, and I Googled that before we came today, and it comes up pretty
and the phone
easy.
number's in there.
Perfect. All right. Well, I will make sure that it's all listed in there. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Lanny.
Thanks.
You're very welcome.